Hi, my name is Savion Jones, and today I'll be going over my background art process for an animation assignment. I'll be going over some critiques I've had and what I did to fix it, as long as what I used and how long it took. So just stay tuned if you want to see. I know what you're probably thinking. You're probably thinking like, dang, this video's heck long, and you're right. Um, Basically, for this video, I'm going to be going over my thought process. So if you want to speed through this video, be my guest. I won't be offended in any way, shape, or form. But let's get started. So first off, the assignment was to make a foxtail. Like we were supposed to animate a foxtail digitally in Toon Boom by hand at school. I'm in Animation 2, and I'll link my school's animation program, K9 Studios, down in the description. So yeah, first off, I wanted to go with a foresty type background. I love forests in real life, and even though I've never been to too many, I still like the way they look, and pictures of them, they're so pretty. So when we got our assignment, we were told to do research, of course, so I of course wanted to do the red fox that lives in the woods and stuff like that. So I was thinking about shows that I can reference that have really nice background art. One was, of course, Steven Universe. I love that show. And two was Gravity Falls. In the end, you could see that really shine through with the style of the trees that they have. I really love the way that they simplified the trees in the backgrounds to something that's not too hard to draw, and it's really not that hard. So yeah, that's my main inspiration for this. So now let's get into coloring. So at first I had no idea how I was going to color this. I was stuck, like I didn't know what to do first. So I did it in grayscale, and then I still didn't even know what I was really doing, but it did give me an idea of where colors and shadows should be placed. Like my sun, and where things should be darker and lighter based on where I have placed the sun, which you guys saw in the beginning of the video, that grayscale. You guys also saw that I at first went with the orange background. There was two problems with that. I didn't like the orange, and I wanted the fox to sort of stand out. And since it's a red fox, if you look at a red fox, it's not really red. It's more of like a orangish red, and I knew that would clash with the background. So I ended up changing that in towards the end. For the trees, they were actually really fun. I made a little palette, and I swatched some colors from shows, background art, stuff like that, and I made like a little palette. Like some of the colors, like they were like completely wrong, so I ended up making some of my own. Like the green and browns, like they just look so washed out when you use the dropper over them. So that's what I ended up doing. The final piece looks very saturated and rich, which was the look I was going for. So yeah, so for the trees where they meet the wood, that was a struggle for me at first. I wish I had the footage, but it corrupted. It was like a weird thing where I didn't know how to blend, and I had to use some like sort of painting techniques. I'm not a digital painter at all. I normally just do like illustrations and things like that. I'm not really into the painterly look and feel, although I am trying to get into that, but it wasn't for this piece at all. But to help me through it, I ended up using a watercolor brush and a marker brush. So the marker went on the base brown of the tree, and then I used that same marker but a green, and I marked in where the green was supposed to be, and I took a watercolor brush. I think I used a combination of watercolor and airbrush, and I basically watercolored and blended in over and over again where the tree meets the bark of the tree. And I just kept going over it until it like blended and smooth, and then I moved on to rocks, and I did that same technique for the rocks, the grass, and the foreground trees and stuff like that. I also used a lot of gradients. I used a circular gradient with the dodge mode on, so that way it looks like the sun is actually hitting it. So yeah, that's what I really did for the color. So when I took it to school the next day, what you guys saw in the beginning of the video, that orangey background, that's what I had for a few weeks, and that's what I was working with. I didn't decide to go to this deep dark purple until I started thinking about the coloring of my fox, like I said. I wanted to be a very rich red, and I wanted it to look very nice and cohesive with all the rest of the colors, because before I felt like everything was just kind of like splattered color here, splattered color there. It just wasn't really working for me, so I ended up going to Google to find a reference image. You can see it on my screen right now. There's nothing wrong with using reference. I just used the eyedropper tool to get an idea of what the colors should be like, and I used a mix of marker brushes, gradients, and the airbrush tool, along with a Gaussian blur for the clouds. I really liked doing this part because as much as I say that I'm not a digital painter, I still do want to like dip my toes in that water and see what it's like. So some critiques that I had on this piece were some of the trees clashed with each other and they weren't all going the same direction. You can see me rotate the left tree in the beginning, like towards the beginning of the video. It was clashing with the foreground tree and it looked weird. So I rotated it so that way it even further directed the viewer's eyes towards the fox. You guys will see that in a later video. I'm just finishing up tweaking it and adding some special effects. But yeah, there wasn't really too much other than the fact that some of the trees were not really placed right, and the black stick in the front next to it's in the foreground. You'll see it's just black. It's in front of the rock. At first it was extremely long and it looked like the fox was looking at it, but I cut it and I moved it down basically. That's all I really did. I just added more gradients to the grass, gradients to the rocks, and just some very deep shadows that you guys will see me put into it. And it really tied the piece together because of the sunset and the color that I chose for the shadow on multiply mode. It just really tied it together like this. Not spooky, but I don't know what this feeling is, but it's not spooky, it's not scary, but it's also not serene. I guess it's just a dark sunset from a forest, which is basically what it is. Something that I've learned while doing background art is that you can't take your time. I mean, you can, but it's a waste of time basically. Not everything is going to look pretty. The rocks, they don't look that pretty, but not really. The uglier it gets, the nicer it looks. But just go willy-nilly with things. That if you're having trouble with it, just try things out and just see where it takes you from there. Another thing is that blurs will be your best friend. If you have something that calls for like a painterly type look, like clouds and things like that, put a blur on it. It makes it look 10 times better than having some rough, unblurred, ugly edges. And I use blurs throughout this whole thing. I use blur for the foreground because I wanted that to be blurred. Blurs for the background, and the trees that you see me add more of. I think you guys just saw that. Those dark trees in the back, that's literally the background. Blurred. I blurred that not as intensely as the foreground plants, trees, but they're still blurred. The gradients on the rocks, the gradients on the grass, the gradients on the trees, those are all blurs, and blurs really are your best friend when it comes to lighting and just perspective and things of that nature. The dark trees that you see all the way in the back, that is the background. The water, the colored trees, and the grass and things like that, that is on its own separate layer. That is the midground, and that big tree and those two trees to the side, that is the foreground. That's why I broke it up. I broke it up into painted sky, background, midground, foreground. And yeah, basically blurs will be your best friend. I also use it in the water. You can see it in the water. Blurs, blurs, blurs. It's great. Walking into this assignment, I knew what I had to do from the jump. I knew that there wasn't too much animation going on, and I knew that I wanted to stand out from the rest of the crowd. When you see everybody else's assignments, I want your eyes to be drawn to mine, which is why I use such vivid colors. My intentions with this were not for it to blend in. I wanted people to be drawn to it. I wanted people to be like, wow, that is really, really nice. And that's the end result that I had when I was working on it the final day, which is today. I don't know when this video is going to be uploaded, but when I was working on it today, the head animation teacher came in and said, wow, that is beautiful. And when he said that, I was like, thank you. And I was like, that's how I know that I achieved my goal, because he looked at it and said, wow, that's beautiful. And that was my goal with this. I wanted it to catch people's eyes. I wanted it to draw attention to itself because that's what I want. I want it to be, I don't know. I wanted it to be just that level, that extraness. I don't know what. I don't know what's up with me and extraness, but I wanted it to be extra. So, yeah. And that's what I also took into account while designing this. I knew that I wasn't going to come up with something super original. I don't really have a super original style that I see that I like right now. So, when I've thought of like that forest thing, I was like, Gravity Falls. It literally takes place around the woods. And people know that style of the show. They'll be like, oh, that's from Gravity Falls, because people like that show. And when people see something that's recognizable, they're easily going to go follow it than something that's like super new. Not saying that super new things are bad, but like when you don't know what you're really doing and you're just taking inspiration from all these different sources, I just used the Gravity Falls / Steven Universe type style because I knew it was going to catch people's eyes. It's familiar, it's what people know, and it's what they like. Now this background took about, I did it over the span of 2 days. I did it all basically in one sitting for the first day, which was the orange background, and then the last day, the day before it was due, I just did touch-ups and stuff like that, just small little tweaks. But in total, I want to say it took me about either 3, 4, or 5 hours. I don't know which one. I think it's like, I want to say 3.5 hours, 4. But that's just the time that I had for it. I was bored over spring. Just so many different factors played into why it took so long. Mainly because I didn't know what I was doing, and 2, I just wanted to spend my time on it. I really liked it, and I'm really proud of it. And at the end of the day, I could say that I made this beautiful background for this animation assignment that you guys will see later. So now that I'm done talking about my process and yada yada yada, going forward, you guys will see some of my Animation 1 and Animation 2 assignments. But the Animation 2 assignments will take a little longer to get out since I'm still in the class. So yeah, that's all we really have to say. Just enjoy this last little like 2 minutes or so of the speed paint, and you will see the final result, and it looks very, very nice. I promise I will upload the animation of this once it's done. But just the way it's rendered at school, it looks kind of ashy, so I'm just gonna like tweak the colors a little bit for YouTube, and you guys will see that animation as soon as it's done. One last note, the water is left blank because I plan on animating that, so don't worry about the water. Well, our time together has come to a close. I really hope you guys enjoyed this speed paint talk thingamajig, whatever you want to call it. If you like this video and you want to see more, please leave a like and a comment down below. Watch my last video so you can leave suggestions on what you would like to see, as well as you can listen to me again express my goals for this channel in 2018 and just goals in general. So yeah, don't forget to leave a like and comment, and I'll see you guys next time.